but won't guarantee the big names will be there.
Yet another crisis meeting at league headquarters today. Chief executives from all 20 clubs calling for one competition and compromise.
And we certainly believe it is in the best interest of the game for there to be only one competition and that the ARL run that competition.
We just hope that somewhere down the track the situation can be resolved.
With that in mind, fans are still in the dark though over the rep scene. ARL chairman Ken Arthurson says the Origin and Test matches are on, but will all the game's superstars be there?
You'd be absolutely crazy if you were going to have players playing in another competition to be trying to build a team around people that were going to leave you.
Also today, a stinging attack from Bulldogs chief executive Peter Moore that the ARL threat of expulsion wasn't a real one, and the club wasn't given a chance to defend themselves.
He'd like an apology. I hope he doesn't hold his breath.
The emotions also overflowed last night during a Super League debate at the Cronulla Club. For a moment, the warring factions came together, but then league legend Johnny Raper went on the attack.
If you want to be tied up with the mob, you do so, and you'll regret it for the rest of your life.
I think the players deserve to have something after rugby league.
We had 3 testimonial dinners for you, all of which were supported by the Australian Rugby League.
Finally, calm returned with peace offerings extended.
Getting nasty, isn't it? Well, our man inside the Raiders and the Super League, Bradley Clyde, has some revealing information tonight. Despite what you may have heard, he hasn't gone to the highest bidder.
By the time the Super League had come along, I was feeling pressure on both sides of the fence, and eventually I naturally signed with the Super League.
Now, I understand East actually offered you more money than you're being paid now by the Super League.
Yeah, that's true. There was quite a difference there, and I eventually signed with the Super League. But still, that offer that that the Eastern Suburbs Club did offer me is still a great deal more than what I actually signed on for.
Much more?
Well, we're talking about a considerable sum, but when you weigh it all up, I had to weigh up the fact that I want to stay here in Canberra, which I call home, and I want to play football with the guys that I'm currently playing football with.
Is the sort of money that's being talked about in the papers, is that correct?
Well, some of the articles that I've read vary from $1 million, which is a great deal of money, but some of them are pretty well on the button.
I guess the big thing, Brad, is are we going to see better football as a result of all this?
Well, I think so. The intensity from a player will certainly be there week in and week out, which is going to create a great spectacle.
And Australian hooker Steve Walters will be back in the Canberra Raiders team for Sunday's grand final replay with Canterbury at Parramatta Stadium. Only one change. Walters was named last week, but a knee injury kept him out. This week it's his backup who's in doubt. Jason Deeth has been bracketed on the reserves bench after suffering concussion during last Sunday's win over St George.
He'll go ahead, but he admits there may be some problems for selectors.
No question.
Another crisis meeting of the Australian Rugby League Board and club chief executives today. But any thoughts it may have been to bow to Super League was far from the truth.
We're in a pretty strong position. I mean, don't think for one moment we're getting on our knees saying, geez, please sit down and negotiate with us, because that isn't the case at all, really.
Arthurson says a plan by Penrith's Roger Cowan was not tabled, but it's understood to include 2 conferences and the merging of some clubs aimed at overcoming the rights to TV hurdle.
If they are going to merge, how they should go about it, what the ramifications are, what the legal implications are, what the problems are, if any, and at the end of the day, if they want to make that decision, and probably we might have to be looking at rewarding them in some way.
But a decision was reached that will bring joy to football supporters. The State of Origin series will continue, and Australia will play the Kiwis mid-June, despite New Zealand's defection to Super League.
We believe that the people of New Zealand and rugby league supporters of New Zealand shouldn't be penalised because somebody else has acted irresponsibly.
While the ARL will go ahead with this year's internationals against New Zealand and the State of Origin fixtures, the selection of Super League signed players in those teams still remains a mystery.
We've never ever been in the habit of telling the selectors who they should and shouldn't pick.
The prospect of a downturn in State of Origin's television ratings could force Packer to take the first steps towards some conciliation.
As a matter of fact, to tell you the truth, I think we've been victims of our own success. And that's the only reason that Mr Murdoch and News Corporation are interested, and they've never been interested in a few years ago. Let me ask you this question. Does anyone in their wildest dreams think that Mr Murdoch suddenly woke up in bed one night and thought, Jesus, I like the game of rugby league, I'll have to do something for that?
Russell Fairfax, 10 News.
George last week, and he changed Steve Walters, who's been on the injured list, comes back into the team with Jason Deeth dropping to the fresh reserves.
Crime. A massive new data bank.
Chief Executive Kevin Neal returned from a meeting of ARL chiefs this morning. The Green Machine now totally committed to the Super League plan.
ARL boss Ken Arthurson confirmed all 20 clubs supported the league's stance to run the game in Australia at yesterday's meeting. The majority, however, still support a Super League concept, including the Canberra Raiders. Speaking on Win Television's League Roundup, Chief Executive Kevin Neal today outlined the direction the Green Machine is headed. Protest or no protest from members.
No, we know where we're going. Our players have all signed with the Super League, and the Raiders will be in the Super League when it starts. That's where we know where we're headed.
Raiders management will consider holding an awareness meeting of members next week. There, the Super League proposal will be outlined. The subject of rep football was also talked about yesterday in Sydney. The future still uncertain.
They said State of Origin would go ahead, but they didn't say whether they'd use Super League signed players or not. And the Test series in New Zealand was
Stick with the ARL. The Newcastle coach has agreed to stay with the establishment for another 4 years in a bid to keep the Knights together.
Sergeant Malcolm Reilly told his players last night of his decision to remain with the Australian Rugby League, declining a lucrative deal to join the rival News Limited group. It was an agonising decision.
I've sat on the fence just as long as I possibly could, and